So as always, I invite you to maybe have some music of your own playing in the background if there's some type of music that you want to have as you practice, because you may or may not be able to hear mine. It may not be coming through the speakers. And as we get started, you might want to be sitting up on something. So I've got bolsters off to the side. I'm actually sitting on a yoga block, but if that feels too hard, you could put a towel or a t-shirt over a yoga block or roll up a blanket, something like that. And the purpose in sitting up on something is it's going to help release any extra pressure on our lumbar spine. So especially if when you're seated on the ground, cross-legged, if you notice your knees are higher than your hips, so maybe your knees are up here somewhere, um, sitting up on something is going to help with that. And it's going to help us keep from slumping and putting, again, that extra pressure where we don't want it. So if you ever deal with low back pain and you still try to sit on the floor without any support, it's a good reminder that maybe a little bit of support might be helpful. And if crossing your legs doesn't feel good, you might choose to extend the legs. And the big key is finding a position that feels good to you. So if seated right now isn't feeling very helpful or useful to you, you could lie on your back or stand. I'm going to start seated. And again, I'm going to be cross-legged. If you are cross-legged like I am, maybe scooting a little bit so we can remove some of that extra tissue or, basically our glutes away from our sitting bones so we can sit nice and tall, thinking about lengthening the spine so we can allow that channel for the energy to flow from our root chakra, our tailbone, to our crown chakra, top of the head. And then if you'd like, just gently letting your hands rest in the lap. So from here, we can either have our hands face up. This is considered a gesture of receiving. Or if you'd like to feel a little more grounded, then placing your hands with the palms down. And we're going to start to settle in here. So maybe closing our eyes or letting our gaze come towards the tip of the nose. And as we arrive here in our bodies, on our yoga mats, maybe just beginning to be, just noticing without creating any type of stories about why anything is. And maybe we rushed to get here, or maybe we had a conversation right before this time and we're still, thinking about those things. And as best as we can, connecting our awareness to this present moment, feeling our bodies on the ground, noticing what it feels like to be supported and held, and allowing ourselves to be supported and held. Because sometimes we can get stuck in the idea that we have to do everything on our own. Now just beginning to notice our breath as we inhale and exhale through the nose. Hands can stay as they are, or if you'd like, you could place a hand on the heart center, and then maybe the other hand on any part of the body that might be feeling a little achy or tight right now. So as we breathe in, we could imagine that we are sending our breath to the parts of the body that might need it the most right now. Inhaling, creating space. Exhaling, letting go of limiting thoughts, letting go of judgment, competition, expectations. Breathing in, expanding, creating space. And again, breathing out anything that no longer serves us in this moment. And as we breathe in and breathe out, we might notice our mind starting to wander. And if that happens, just gently inviting our awareness back to the breath, even if we have to do that every couple of seconds. Just gently coming back to the breath and back to this present moment. And knowing that we have that gentle gift of bringing our awareness back to the breath that we can use both on the yoga mat and off it as well. So we'll take just a few more breaths here in this seated breath awareness practice. And then when you're ready, bowing your chin towards your chest, we're letting the neck be long. Maybe feeling a stretch into the back of the neck or the upper back, into the shoulders. When you're ready, blinking the eyes open and gently bringing your gaze back up to parallel. So chin's parallel. And we're going to move through some gentle movements for the neck. And when we do this, it's always a good idea to pay attention to how it feels, because for each of us, we might have different movements that feel better or worse for our necks. And it's really important to honor what you're experiencing. So if something doesn't feel good, then please, I invite you to move another way, or maybe even pause in a movement. So from here, maybe inhaling and then turning our chin towards the left shoulder, noticing maybe how far our chin comes in comparison to our shoulder. We'll exhale, coming back to center, and then inhaling again. As we exhale, this time we'll turn to the other side, inhaling, and then exhaling forward. So just pairing your movement with your breath, or allowing the breath to flow easily as we turn from one side and then back front. The key here is we're moving very slowly and mindfully, noticing how we feel, noticing the range of motion. Maybe one side goes a little farther than the other. And if we notice those things, we can kind of, maybe think to ourselves, aha, but not really getting carried away in the story about why one side might feel a little easier than the other. So after we feel balanced from side to side, we'll come back to face the front. And this time we're going to go first down. So like we were a moment ago, exhaling chin towards the chest. And then as we inhale, we can either pause where the chin is parallel, or if it feels okay, we can look up towards the ceiling. And then coming back to neutral and then down. Now that version of going all the way up or looking towards the ceiling, that may or may not be appropriate for us today. So if that's not feeling good, then making sure we leave that one out. Or we might just look up towards the line between the wall and the ceiling. So before we were kind of going in a no motion when we were going side to side. So now we're in that very slow motion, nodding our head yes. And we'll do one more round, and then we'll come back to that neutral position. And now we're going to turn our chin towards the left shoulder or the left knee, depending upon where you'd like it to line up. And this time we're going to bring the chin to the chest. So kind of a combination of the two. And we can keep that left hand on our lap or the floor, or taking that hand behind the right ear. So on the base of the skull, and just applying a gentle amount of pressure. So the head is pushing up towards the hand is just applying a little bit of weight to the head. We might notice this into the side of the neck, into the back of the shoulder. And just breathing here, making sure we're not holding our breath. And then we're going to slowly release that hand, but still keeping the head where it is. And we'll take the fingertips on the left hand, and we're going to use the fingertips at the cheek to help us lift the head back to neutral. So noticing how that side feels. We'll try that again on the opposite side. So this time chin comes towards the right knee or in that direction, towards that diagonal. And then down towards the chest. And this might be enough. You could stay right here, or we could take the right hand across and just letting it rest gently behind the back of the left ear. So maybe thinking about the head and the hand being magnetized towards each other. And only applying as much pressure as gives you a good sensation. We're not trying to go for any type of ouch sensations. Keeping the head as it is, we'll bring the fingertips to the right cheek. And again, using the fingertips in the arm, not the neck, to help us lift back to neutral. So we've moved through a few different ranges of motion for the neck. And now I invite you to move in any way that feels good. So that might be some half circles, or you might repeat something that we've already done. Or maybe there's a different movement your neck is asking for. I'm going to just gently go from one side and then back to the other. Nice and slow. We always want to move mindfully when we're working through the neck. Giving ourselves a little bit of an opportunity to create mobility for the cervical spine, or to keep that mobility. And then finishing up, we'll bring our neck back into a neutral position, noticing what felt good, what was helpful, and knowing that those are some, gentle things that we can do, even if we're sitting at a desk or we're, we just have a few moments to give ourselves a little bit of ease, is to focus on loosening some of those neck muscles. And now we're going to go deeper into connecting our breath and our movements. So inhaling, arms can come either out to the side or all the way up. And then we'll exhale, bring arms back to heart center. You can bring hands to prayer. Inhaling and exhaling. So if that feels a little awkward, we could inhale the arms up, maybe exhale, hands through heart center. And I invite you to get a little playful here, see what feels good to you. Connecting breath to movement. So inhaling, the arms open, exhaling, hands come to heart center. And again, I'm moving through a few different variations. You could pick one. Sometimes I like to go into a chest expansion, what we sometimes call cactus arms. That can feel really good on the upper back and shoulders as well. Our main goal right here is connecting movement and breath, and also starting to oxygenate all our cells, sending oxygen to all the parts of us that we're going to be using through our practice, which is really everything. And remembering that the breath is really the key to our yoga practice. So as long as we're breathing and flowing, it doesn't matter what our poses look like. It doesn't matter what our body looks like. It's all about letting that breath flow. So if you were especially tired today and you wanted to lie on your back and breathe through the practice, that would be perfect. So finishing up this breath flow, maybe one or two more. So we've been sitting for a little while. If you need to shake your legs out or maybe switch which leg is in front, you could do that. I'm gonna tap my legs out and then put the other leg in front. And now we're gonna add in a little bit of lateral flexion. So inhaling that right arm up, getting a little bit of a side bend. Left hand can come to the floor or to the legs. And then exhaling down. Inhaling the left arm up. I don't know which arm I said before, but this is the left arm. and then exhaling down, inhaling and exhaling. So you can move at this pace, or you can move faster or slower. You might make it a little more flowy as one arm comes down, the other arm goes up, lengthening, creating space between the ribs while we contract the opposite side. So it's almost like a little bit of a side crunch on the other side of the body. Growing taller, letting the spine move from side to side. And then maybe one more to each side until we feel balance. And then coming back into our starting position, we're going to come off of our block or whatever support we might be sitting on and setting that off to the side. Bring your hands underneath shoulders, knees under hips. And before we move into our cat and cow, just doing a few little hip circles here. So circling with our whole body. So you might feel this into the wrists. And if you need to support the knees or cushion the knees, you could do that. You could place a towel underneath the knees. We'll pause and we're going to reverse that. Starting small, but if it feels better, you could make your circles a little bigger. Just breathing and flowing, creating mobility for those wrists, the hips. We'll come back to our tabletop. So hands are directly underneath shoulders, knees are under hips. And as we inhale, we're going to lift the tailbone, drop the belly, and extend the heart forward for cow pose. Now our gaze can go forward, or if that feels like it's too much for the back of the neck, we can keep our gaze on the floor in front of us. As we exhale, we're going to drop the tailbone, rounding the belly, chin towards the chest for cat pose. So rounding your spine like an angry cat as we push that floor away from us. Inhaling, dropping the belly, heart comes forward for cow. Exhaling, belly draws in, chin towards the chest for cat. Moving and flowing, finding your own perfect rhythm. Massaging the entire back body as we do this. Inhaling, heart forward. Exhaling, rounding the spine, pushing that floor away from us. So you can stay here with your cat and cow just as this is, or we can add in a little bit. So as we inhale, forward to cow, belly drops. As we exhale, rounding the spine and maybe sitting our heels or our hips down on the heels, coming into child's pose. And you can stay there as long as you'd like, or as we next inhale, scooping the belly, coming forward to cow, and then rounding back into child's pose. Finding a rhythm that matches your breath. Knowing you can pause in any part of this flow. So maybe in child's pose, or rounded into that cat pose. We'll do a few more flowing. So one more. And this time when we come into child pose, you might choose to take your knees a little bit wider, making some space for the belly as we sink our forehead down to the floor. Or you could stack the hands or a block underneath the forehead. Gently rocking the brow side to side, massaging that spot between the eyebrows, known as our third eye, or where our third eye is. That's that place of our intuition, our inner knowing. Tuning into any other sensations in the body. So you might feel the ankles getting a nice stretch here, the top of the feet, the inner thighs, maybe something else. And if you're rocking, we can come into some stillness here. And if you'd like, we can stay in this child's pose, or we can extend those hands forward, crawling the fingertips towards the top edge of the mat. If our knees are wide, we'll bring them back in so they're in line with the hips. And tucking our toes to lift into downward facing dog. It might feel really good here to pedal out the feet, lifting one heel and then the other. So one heel comes towards the ground while the other one lifts. Walking our dog, waking up the bottoms of our feet, the calves, the hamstrings. And then letting both heels come towards the yoga mat, even if they don't make it there. So our goal here is to have a nice long spine. So that might mean bending the knees deeply so that we can accomplish that. So thinking about prioritizing that long, straight spine. We're going to inhale, looking towards the hands, exhaling, taking as many steps as we need, feet towards hands, coming into forward fold at the front of our yoga mat. And then just gently swaying side to side like a rag doll. Fingertips tracing the floor. And then we'll find some stillness, taking hands to opposite elbow, framing our head with our arms. Letting the upper body hang here, creating a nice stretch for the lower back. And being mindful to keep the knees bent at least a little bit to protect the hamstrings. So if we feel a little tightness in those hamstrings, bending the knees a little bit more. Belly's resting on the legs. Then releasing those hands towards the ground. Getting ready to lift. We're going to press into the four corners of each foot and pressing down or rooting. We're going to inhale, rising tall. Exhaling, hands come to heart center. So we're going to start moving through some variations on Sun Salutations. And starting in our mountain pose, we'll roll those shoulders back and down. Knees are soft. Inhaling, sweeping the arms up, turning our gaze towards the thumb if that's okay to the neck. And then exhaling, hinging at the hips, coming into forward fold. Inhaling to rise halfway, monkey pose. Hands can rest on our shins here, or you could place them on your blocks. Still keeping at least a little bend in the knees. And then as we exhale, hands come to the floor, coming back into that forward fold with belly resting on the legs. On our next in-breath, we're going to step that left foot forward, lowering the knee down to the ground, uncurling the toes. Front knee is directly over the ankle. And you can keep your hands grounded or bring your hands to that front thigh, relaxing our shoulder and our gaze. So a nice soft gaze. Exhaling, hands come to frame that front foot, and we'll step that foot back. So coming back into that child's pose where we just were, and you could stay here and rest, or if you'd like, we could add in a variation of our vinyasa. So we'll inhale forward, maybe coming to tabletop where we were before, or we could be in a kneeling plank with a straight line from shoulders to knees, belly drawing in, keeping us lifted, and then exhaling, lowering that upper body as one unit, coming all the way down to the floor. Placing our elbows underneath the shoulders. We're going to come into Sphinx pose here. So for Sphinx pose, we want to check making sure we have a good distance between our arms. So we can bring our hands to the opposite bicep muscle, and then hands come back down to the ground. Lifting the low belly away from the floor, Ears away from shoulders. So the way we can check this is if we notice that we're slumping here, then doing our best to lift up and out. And this can be very helpful for the low back. It's a nice, gentle back bend here. But if this is too much, we can always lower down. And then that's what we're all going to do is exhaling, bringing the forehead down to the floor, hands come next to the chest. And we're going to reverse that push-up that we just did. So pressing the floor away from us, lifting as one unit, and then exhaling back into child's pose. And if we're hanging out there, then we'll all just meet here in this child's pose. We're getting ready to step that left foot to the hands, finding our lunge on this side. So we're in a low lunge, checking our alignment with the knee and the ankle. If we find that the knee is in front of the ankle, we could always give a little bit of a scooch, give our leg a little scooch. And again, just allowing a sense of ease as we settle into this low lunge. Now taking our hands to frame that front foot, we're going to lift the back knee, coming into a runner's lunge, and then we'll step, taking as many steps as we need, coming into that forward fold once again. Inhaling to rise halfway, monkey pose, exhaling, melting, forward fold. Inhaling to rise, extended mountain, exhaling, sitting into our chair pose. Heart is lifted. Inhaling, circle, sweeping the arms. Exhaling, forward fold. Inhaling to that monkey pose, lengthening and strengthening. So thinking about really getting a nice long spine here. Gaze down towards the floor. Exhaling, hands come to the floor, knees are bent. This time we're going to step the right foot or backward, coming into our low lunge. And if you'd like, you can keep your hands in whichever option you chose before, or we can add in a little bit of a twist here, bringing hands to heart center. Inhaling, and then as we exhale, twisting towards that front leg. Hands could stay in prayer or maybe resting on the body, noticing how this changes the sensation as we twist. We'll inhale back to forward, and this time twisting away from the front leg. And again, you can keep your hands wherever feels most comfortable for you. Maybe turning to see that rear foot, depending upon how that feels to the neck. And then inhaling, we'll come back to that neutral, bringing hands to frame the front foot again, and we'll step that foot back, finding our child's pose, and remembering we can stay here in stillness, or we can move through that vinyasa, that half series that we just did. So I'm going to speed that up just a tiny bit. Inhaling forward to table or kneeling plank, exhaling to lower. And you can repeat that Sphinx, or we could do a baby cobra pose. Inhaling, hands are next to the body, so gently hovering off the mat and only coming into the curve that our spine naturally makes. Exhaling, hands come back down to the ground, and this time we're going to inhale, pushing the floor away. Exhale, finding child's pose. So on our next in-breath, we're going to step that right foot forward to our low lunge. Inhaling, settling into it, maybe adding in our twist. So exhaling to twist towards the front leg. And just breathing. Inhaling, we'll come forward. Exhaling, we'll twist away. On our next in-breath, we'll come back to face the front. Hands come down to the ground. We'll lift that rear knee, and then big step coming into our forward fold. Inhaling, we'll rise halfway, monkey pose. Exhaling forward, forward fold. Inhaling to rise. Exhaling to sit into chair. Inhaling and exhaling. So we're going to pause to check in our mountain pose, relaxing the shoulders, keeping the knees soft. Eyes could even be closed here if you'd like. But tuning into sensations. We're getting ready to add on to our Sun Salutations. So I'm going to change them up a little bit, but if you'd like, we can stick with any of the versions that we've already done. Inhaling. Turning our gaze up towards the hands, if that's available. If not, keeping our gaze forward. And then as we exhale, hinging, coming into that forward fold. We'll inhale to lift halfway, keeping the shoulders away from the ears. Exhaling, hands come back down to the floor. This time when we step the left foot back, you can drop that knee or keep it lifted. So for this lunge, especially if you have that back knee lifted, you might want to bring your blocks underneath the hands, bringing the floor a little bit closer to us. We might choose to lift the hands to that front thigh, but only if we feel balanced and centered. If we need a little extra support, then we can bring our hands onto those blocks. Then exhaling, we're going to bring our hands back down to the ground or to the blocks. And this time we'll step that right foot back, coming into either down dog, or you could drop the knees coming into child's pose. So as we have an opportunity to stay still, we also have that opportunity to move. So you could move through the vinyasa like we did before with the first two, or we can inhale forward to kneeling, or actually to plank on toes, or we could drop those knees and then exhale back to down dog or child's pose. So I'm going to do that one more time, inhaling forward to plank, exhaling back. And actually we'll do one more time. Inhaling forward, shoulders over wrists if you're in plank, exhaling back. And again, we could be in child's pose or down dog right now. We're getting ready to step that left foot, the top of the mat, giving it a little bit of help if it needs some to get there. Knee is still right over the ankle. So we want to practice safely. And we can stay grounded or we could be lifted. Softening our gaze, relaxing the throat. Exhaling, hands come back to the floor. And if we need to lift that rear knee, we'll do so. And then big step. Again, you can take as many steps as you need to get here. We'll inhale to lift halfway, lengthening the backs of the legs. Exhaling, belly rests on the legs. Inhaling, we'll rise. Exhaling into our chair pose. We'll do one more. So inhaling, we'll lift. Exhaling, hinging at the hips. Inhaling to rise halfway. Thinking about our heart like a superhero. We're flying through the sky. Exhaling back into that forward fold. On our next in-breath, we're going to step the right foot back. So we added in some twists on a previous round. So we have an option to add twists here once again. So we could bring our hands to that front thigh. And again, if we need this stability, keeping our hands lowered. But if you'd like, bring hands to heart center. We'll twist towards that front leg. And you could stay upright like this, or you could take your right hand to the block or to the floor. And if it feels okay to the shoulder, we could open that top arm. If that's too much, placing the hand on the sacrum and only turning the head and neck if that feels helpful to you. And now if we're in our twist, we're going to come back to face the front and then big step, your choice, child's pose or downward facing dog. Pausing to notice and even asking yourselves, do I want to move through that vinyasa? Do I want some stillness? What does my body need? So you can either add in one of the flows that we did. Again, maybe an option to come to kneeling plank or plank on toes. I'm going to move through the plank to downward facing dog a few times. But it's always about listening to your body. What does your body need? From here, we're going to meet in your choice of down dog or child's pose. We're getting ready to step the right foot to the hands, finding lunge on toes or on knees. And again, another opportunity to twist. So only adding in the twist if that feels like what your body would really like the most here. So inhaling, maybe we'll twist towards that front leg, keeping hands at prayer position. Now on the other side, I put my hand on the floor. So I'm gonna take my left hand on the ground, still twisting towards that front knee, and then maybe opening that top arm. If that's too much on the shoulder, letting the hand rest on the sacrum. We can look up towards the ceiling or down towards the hand. And of course, you could be in that more upright version. From here, we'll bring our body square to the front and then getting ready to step into that forward fold. And in this forward fold, we're just going to add in that ragdoll once again, gently swaying from side to side, letting the fingertips trace the ground, head is hanging long. We'll slow that down, coming into stillness. And then inhaling halfway, monkey pose, exhaling, forward fold, letting the belly rest here, letting the body rest. Pressing down to the four corners of the feet as we inhale, sweeping up. Exhaling, chair pose, sometimes called fierce pose. And then inhaling, we'll let the arms come up. Exhaling, arms come next to the body. We'll pause to check in. So feet are about hip width apart. Palms are facing forward, fingertips down, knees are soft. In mountain pose. So for some of us, this might seem like we're just standing, but this is a very powerful pose too. So feeling your power, feeling your strength as the feet root down, crown of the head is lifting and rising. We're rooting to rise, rising tall. If eyes were closed, we'll blink them open, bringing hands to heart center. We're going to step the right foot forward or backward. We're going to step the right foot back, coming into warrior one. So the feet are about hip width apart. And we've got equal weight in the front leg and the back leg, pressing into the outer edge of that back foot. Hands could stay at prayer, or we can lift them into traditional warrior one arms with palms facing in towards each other. Again, feeling the power of a warrior here, feeling powerful and strong as we set our gaze. Hands come back to heart center if they were lifted. And we're going to step this rear foot back. So now the feet are pretty much in line with each other. So the front heel, back arch, hands could be here at prayer or extending the arms long, turning our gaze, if we've got the arms long, towards that front middle finger. We're going to check to make sure we can see the big toe inside of the knee here. So if this knee is flopping in, giving it a little bit of help, letting this front thigh spiral towards the pinky toe side of the foot. From here, we're going to inhale, straightening that front leg, arms come overhead. Exhaling, sitting back into warrior two. We're going to do that 2 more times. So inhaling to lift. Exhaling to find that warrior two. Inhaling one more time. And then exhaling, finding warrior two. This time we're going to bend that front elbow, bringing the forearm down to the thigh, coming into side angle pose. Now, being really mindful that we're not collapsing here, we're lifting and opening the heart towards the ceiling, and that top arm can be lifted if that feels okay. So if that's too much, we'll just let that hand rest on the low back and only looking up if that feels okay to the neck. If that's too much, we can turn our gaze down. And then thinking about the strength of this extended side, we're going to use that whole right side of the body to lift us back into warrior two. And cartwheeling those arms, coming into that runner's lunge. We'll take a big step into forward fold. Inhaling, we'll rise. Exhaling, hands come to heart center. Now I'm going to flip to the other side just so you can see me a little better, but you can stay just as you are. So this time we're going to step the left foot back, finding warrior one. So we still have that hip width distance between the legs. Shoulders are turning towards that front edge of the mat, the small edge of the yoga mat. And choosing an arm position here, so maybe traditional warrior arms. We could also do those cactus arms. And another favorite of mine is taking the hands behind the back and interlacing them, getting a nice chest expansion. So letting go of the need to do the same thing on both sides. So you might choose something different on this side. And then from here, we'll bring hands back to heart center. We're getting ready to step back into our warrior two. So we'll step that left leg back. And again, our feet are more in line with each other now than they were in that warrior one. So sitting into that strong front thigh, getting this leg towards 90 degrees. It may not make it all the way there. And extending the arms if you'd like. We're getting ready to do that lift and lower 3 times. So inhaling, we'll lift. Exhaling, sitting back down into those strong legs. Inhaling, hands touch. Exhaling, back into that warrior two. We're going to bend that front elbow, bringing the forearm down to the ground, coming into our side angle pose. Maybe taking this top arm, zipping it up and over. So feeling that strength as we lift the low belly away from the thigh. If you've got this arm extended, we're going to think about the whole left side of the body, using that strength, come back into our warrior two. Cartwheeling the arms, finding our runner's lunge, and then big step, or as many steps as you'd like, coming into forward fold, keeping the knees soft. We're going to inhale, reverse swan dive. All right, so we're getting ready to do a little bit of balance. And balance can always be an interesting part of our practice. So for today's balance, we're going to do eagle pose. And what I'm going to do is break it down first. You can combine it or you can leave them separate. So eagle pose has an arm element and a leg element. And first we'll do the arms. We're going to inhale, sweeping those arms wide. So almost like when we were in our warrior two. Now taking the right arm forward, then the left. And we can either just give ourselves a nice big bear hug here, or we can bring the back of the hands together. So paying attention to how this is feeling to our shoulders. So when we find that spot where it feels like a little too much, that's where we can either back off or just know that that's our stopping point. So you might be there with backs of the hands together. Our next option is to take the palms as much as we can together. That might be a little tricky. So fingertips to the palm of the other hand. And then if you'd like, lifting the arms up and palms away from the face. So our goal here is to get into that spot in the back of the shoulders and just noticing what that sensation feels like. making sure we're breathing. So if you find yourself holding your breath, you've gone too far. And then we're going to slowly release wherever we are, opening those arms, and you can maybe let them flow or you can shake them out. So now we're going to do the opposite side. So starting wide, and now this time left arm forward and the right arm on top. Bear hug, backs of the hands, palms of the hands. And it might feel different on each side, so you might choose something different on this side. And remember, our last option was to inhale, lifting the arms up a little bit and then palms away. So if you're going all the way for that one, you probably are feeling that one for sure in the backs of the shoulders. So these are our eagle arms. And then we'll slowly bring those arms out and down. Now to focus on, so that didn't really seem like much of a balance, but maybe trying to hold it kept you, worrying about your balance. But for the eagle legs, that's where the balance really comes in. So for eagle, we can even think about it as sitting in chair pose. Now we did chair as part of our Sun Salutations. So you might sit into your chair here with the weight of your body, your glutes over the heels, and heart is lifted. So this is one option if what we're about to do is a little too much. So the next thing that we can try is taking this left leg up and over. So almost as if we were sitting in a chair. So like we were just doing chair pose, but sitting in our chair with our legs crossed. So the left toe can be tapping on the floor, can be resting gently. And again, this is going to take us out of our balance. So if you need to hold on to something, maybe a chair or a wall, you can do that. Or you can, if you want to challenge yourself a little bit more, lift the toe away from the ground. And if we wanted to, we could add those arms and we would do the version where, so this left leg is on top, where the left arm is on the bottom, or we can bring our arms out into eagle arms. So whichever variation we're choosing, we're breathing, we're enjoying the challenge. If we know, or if we find ourselves falling over, we know that we can lift ourselves up, dust ourselves off. So we can stay here noticing how the ankle and the leg of this, or the supporting leg, how that moves in tiny little ways to hold us. When we're ready, we'll lift and we'll come out of that. We'll shake out those legs. So the supporting leg is always the one that gets the most work. So we can give ourselves a little bonus movement in between. Again, shake that leg out if you need to. You can rest a little bit longer if you need to. And then we'll get ready to do this same eagle pose on the other side. So first option, sitting into your chair, maybe crossing the right leg over and propping that toe there, using that toe to hold us. That might be enough. So if that is, you could stay here. You could go back to the chair version, or you can lift the toe away. And if you have very flexible ankles, you might even wrap that foot behind the standing leg. If we were at our eagle arms, right leg on top. So now it would be right arm on the bottom, or we can spread those eagle wings wide. That can give us a little bit more assistance with our balance, especially if we're starting to feel ourselves shift out of balance. And it can help to look at a spot on the floor that isn't moving. So I'm watching myself right now, and that's taking me a little bit out of balance. So it can be helpful to not watch me as I'm trying to maintain this. And then when we're ready, we'll lift up, uncross those legs, shake them out. How did we do? So balance can always be a moving target. Some days it's spot on, other days it's a little trickier. Some days the side that we think is our better balancing side might give us a little bit more of a run for our money. And just being with what is. So it's just like when we started the practice, when we were just being aware, noticing, letting go of judgment. All right, so we're going to make our way to the front of our yoga mat. Inhaling, we'll sweep the arms up. Exhaling, finding that forward fold. From here, we're going to step back into our last downward facing dog of the practice. So if there's any last little bit of movement or stillness that you'd like in this down dog, doing whatever feels good. I'm going to add in a three-legged dog, lifting first my left leg towards the sky, lowering it down, and then the right leg. I'm going to do that one more time on each side. But again, you're doing what your body needs right here. Lowering these down to the ground if they're not already there. And we'll make our way onto our bottoms and then onto our back. So I'm going to reach for a block and have it next to me. You might choose to do the same thing. And however you'd like to get on your back, you can arrive there, bringing knees in towards our chest, giving them a nice big hug. Circling the knees or rocking side to side. For circling, we'll go the other way. And if it doesn't feel good to move, you can stay still too. And setting the feet down on the ground, we're going to come into half happy baby. So for half happy baby, we're going to take the left leg and you can hold on behind the thigh, bringing the knee down towards the chest. You might choose to take the hands up towards the calf or even the foot, holding on the outside of the foot. And staying still, or you can just gently rock. So seeing what feels good to you here. And if you're holding on to the foot like I am, you might be drawing that knee down towards the ribs or down towards, just outside of the ribs. This is really going to get into our hips. So moving or staying still, or you can, again, have that hand right behind the thigh. There's no right or wrong. It's just what feels best to your body. And then to come out of this, we want to be really mindful that we don't just slingshot out. So you could walk your hands down the leg and then let the foot come back down to the ground. We're going to pause and notice what that side feels like. And then try it on the other side in whatever variation feels best. Because the thing to keep in mind is that our bodies are not symmetrical. So sometimes what feels good on one side is not the answer for the other side. So moving or staying still, holding on at any part of the leg that gives the best sensation. And we'll just breathe here a few more moments. Coming out of it, being very mindful to not have that foot just slingshot down, and we'll pause and notice. And from this happy baby, we're going to go into full happy baby, or you can repeat one of the sides. For regular happy baby, or what I'm calling full happy baby, holding on either behind those thighs, the calves are reaching for the soles of the feet. So we've probably all seen a baby do this before, and there's definitely a reason that they do. And just like a baby would do, you can move side to side, but if that feels uncomfortable to your spine, then just staying still. So if we add movement, it should add to the sensation. And of course, you could put something soft underneath your back if that feels better. Maybe a towel or a blanket. And then slowly releasing our legs down, finding any last movement or stillness that your body might like. I'm going to come into a supported bridge pose. So taking that block underneath the sacrum, letting the glutes rest off of the block. And then I'm going to lift my legs into supported legs up the wall. Now, if you wanted to come into a bridge pose or maybe windshield wiper the knees, Bring knees to chest, whatever it is your body needs right here. Giving your body whatever last pose that it needs before we come into our Shavasana. And in fact, for some of us, this might be an appropriate pose for Shavasana. You could even come right next to a wall, and that way the legs can rest there. But if you'd rather, you can begin to set up for your Shavasana. So if you were lifted, you could release the support, letting the spine come back down to the ground. Then either keeping knees bent in what we call Ardha Shavasana or half Shavasana, or we could extend those legs, letting the feet just gently flop out to the side. Arms rest next to the body with the palms facing up. Fingertips gently curling. We'll just scoot the shoulders underneath the chest, creating a space behind the heart center. Letting the whole body and the breath slow down. Inviting in our most important pose of the practice. Taking the time to let our bodies assimilate and absorb all that we've done. Softening the place between the eyebrows. Letting the eyes be heavy in their socket. Relaxing the shoulders, the arms, and the fingertips. Releasing the whole back body down to the hips, the thighs, the knees. Releasing the ankles and the feet. When you're ready, inviting some movement back into the body. Wiggling fingers and toes. And bending the knees, we'll roll to one side. Pausing in baby pose. And then using the top hand to help us lift back into a comfortable seat. We'll inhale, bringing the arms overhead with the palms touching. And thumbs to the forehead for good thoughts. To the lips for good words. And to the heart for good intention. The divine light within me honors the divine light within you. Namaste. Thank you so much for sharing your practice with me today. Have a wonderful day.